بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما.
إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى، وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. ثم أما بعد، إخوة الإسلام، لكل منا هم بل هموم يحملها في صدره. إذ الدنيا هي دار الهموم ودار المتاعب والأسقام، كما قال الشاعر: جبلت على كدر وأنت تريدها صفوا من الأكدار. الهموم بعضها دنيوي وبعضها أخروي، فمن الهموم الدنيوية وما أكثرها هم الدراسة، هم الرزق والوظيفة، حاجة الأسرة، أعطال السيارة، مشاكل الأبناء، أو أخبار الفريق الكروي، كل حسب ميوله. فلكل هموم يرقق بعضها بعضا. ومن الهموم الأخروية أحوال المسلمين، عذاب القبر، أهوال القيامة، المصير إلى الجنة أو إلى النار، تربية الأبناء، كيفية القيام بحقوق الوالدين، هم الدين وسداده للخلوص من حقوق العباد. الإنسان يعيش في وسط هذه الهموم، إذ الدنيا معاشنا والآخرة معادنا، فكل منها مصلحة للإنسان يود لو كفيها، لكن ينبغي على المسلم أن يعطي كلا من الدنيا والآخرة قدرها، فيتخفف من شواغل الدنيا وهمومها، ويجعل همه وشغله في مسائل الآخرة. وهذا ما أرشدنا إليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. قال: من جعل الهموم هما واحدا، هم المعاد، كفاه الله هم دنياه. ومن تشعبت به الهموم في أحوال الدنيا لم يبال الله في أي أوديته هلك. رواه ابن ماجه. Brothers and sisters, every one of us has major concerns that keep him going and keep him awake at night. Some of these concerns pertain to the worldly matters, and some of them have to do with the hereafter, al-akhirah. Some of the most common worldly causes of concern are sometimes important, and some others are pretty trivial. School, work, the needs of your family, your car breaking down, problems with your kids. Oh, and the scores of your soccer team, depending on what you're into. And some of the concerns are pertaining to the hereafter, the conditions of the Muslims nowadays, the torment in the grave, the day of judgment, paradise and hellfire, educating the Muslims of tomorrow, dutifulness to the parents, and how do Muslims treat each other and how they deal with the outside world, etc. Two major types of concerns that a Muslim has no escape from. Now the question is, which one of them should have priority? Bearing in mind that the worldly things are everyday tangible matters that we have to live with and deal with on a daily basis. And on the other hand, the things that pertain to the hereafter are in most part matters of the unseen, that sometimes seem in the distant future, and that even seem pretty far-fetched to the ones with weak iman and shaky aqidah, shaky creed, wal-iyadu billah. So what is the biggest word that most of us have? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا. Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, or used to say, "Oh Allah, don't make the dunya, the life of this world, our biggest concern and the extent of our knowledge." This hadith makes you and I pause and think for a minute. Are the things of this world our biggest concern? The best way to find out for sure is for us to do a reality check. Get a piece of paper and start writing. What is the last thing that you think about before you sleep? What do you see in your dreams? What is the first thing that you think about when you wake up? What do you think about when you perform a salah? What kind of supplications are you making? What are the things that make you happy? The things that make you sad? The things that upset you? What are the things that affect your decisions? Your choices when it comes to the wife and a place to live? Is it beauty and the price of the rent? Or is it religion and the proximity to the masjid? These are all priorities. The Prophet of Guidance ﷺ is setting the priorities straight for us. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم من كان همه الآخرة جمع الله شمله وجعل غناه في قلبه وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة ومن كانت نيته الدنيا فرق الله عليه ضيعته وجعل فقره بين عينيه ولم يأته من الدنيا إلا ما كتب له. رواه أحمد. وفي رواية قال صلى الله عليه وسلم، هذه رواية ابن ماجه: من جعل الهموم هما واحدا هم آخرته كفاه الله دنياه ومن تشعبت به الهموم في أحوال الدنيا لم يبال الله في أي أوديتها هلك. الحديث يقارن الحديث الذي ذكرنا من قبل ولكن اللفظ مغاير قليلا. It was narrated by Ibn Majah that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, whoever turns all his concerns into one, the one of the hereafter, Allah will take charge of the affairs of his life. But whoever makes his concerns all about the matters of this world, Allah does not care which one of them causes his demise. It was also narrated by Imam Ahmad. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, whoever made his main concern the hereafter, Allah keeps the life or his life together and makes him content with what he has, and all the things of this world will come to him regardless. And whoever makes his intention all about dunya, the life of this world, Allah will disperse his wealth and will put the fear of poverty constantly in front of his eyes, and he will not get from this life, except that which was predestined for him. Let us look at the best people that ever walked the earth. What was their main concern? Was it the luxuries of this life? To live well, to eat well, to marry, etc.? Or what was it? The prophets and messengers were very special human beings, handpicked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as such, they did understand the responsibility that was on their shoulders, and they acted accordingly. They were not too concerned about their livelihoods, about their safety, their egos, none of that. They had one concern: relaying the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to as many people as they possibly can. We look at Nuh alayhi salam. For 950 years, all he did is call to Allah, not being concerned about his own livelihood, about being mocked, or about the results of his call for that matter. Rather, he was focused 100% on the call to Allah and about the matters of al-akhirah, the hereafter. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is relating what he said, alayhi salam, قال ربي إني دعوت قومي ليلا ونهارا فلم يزدهم دعائي إلا فرارا وإني كلما دعوتهم لتغفر لهم جعلوا أصابعهم في آذانهم واستغشوا ثيابهم وأصروا واستكبروا استكبارا ثم إني دعوتهم جهارا ثم إني أعلنت لهم وأسررت لهم إسرارا. Nuh alayhi salam said, related by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, My Lord, I have called my people night and day, but my calls only increase their flight from the right, from the right path. And every time I have called them so that you might forgive them, they thrust their fingers into their ears, covered themselves with their garments, grown obstinate, and given themselves up to arrogance. So I have called them aloud. Further, I have spoken to them in public and secretly in private. These ayat show clearly that he, alayhi salam, exhausted every possible means in trying to guide his people to the path of Allah. He did so for 950 years, in spite of their arrogance and their mockery. Those things did not matter because he had one concern only, the concern of da'wah, concern of akhirah, concern of the hereafter. Similarly, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam lived his life of prophethood from the age of 40 till he passed, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, having one worry, one concern, that of the ummah. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admonished him in many ayat for making himself sick from worry and sadness about the disbelief of his people. قال الله عز وجل لعلك باخع نفسك ألا يكونوا مؤمنين وقال سبحانه وتعالى فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا وقال سبحانه ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تكن في ضيق مما يمكرون وقال سبحانه قد نعلم إنك ليحزنك الذي يقولون فإنهم لا يكذبونك ولكن الظالمين بآيات الله يجحدون وقال سبحانه ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تك في ضيق مما يمكرون وقال سبحانه فلا تذهب نفسك عليهم حسرات إن الله عليم بما يصنعون وقال سبحانه وتعالى واصفا لنبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم لقد جاءكم رسول من أنفسكم عزيز عليه ما عنتم حريص عليكم بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in speaking about that, the concern of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the excessive concern about the akhirah of his people, he said subhanahu wa ta'ala, perhaps you will kill yourself with grief because they do not believe. This is in Surah Al-Shu'ara. He said subhanahu wa ta'ala as well in Surah Al-Kahf, then maybe you will kill yourself with grief, sorrowing after them if they do not believe in this announcement. Also said subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be patient, and your patience is not but by the assistance of Allah, and grieve not for them, and do not distress yourself at what they plan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in Surah Al-An'am, we know indeed that what they say certainly grieves you, but surely they will not call you a liar, but the unjust, the disbelievers, deny the revelations of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said in describing his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, certainly a messenger has come to you from among yourselves. Grievous to him is you or your falling into distress, excessively concerned about you. To the believers, He is compassionate. This is in Surah At-Tawbah. So many ayat that show clearly that the main reason for concern for Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, his main source of distress and sorrow were the matters of the hereafter, al-akhirah. And as you know, he ﷺ was not just a prophet of Allah. He was also the best husband, the best father, the best statesman, the best military leader, etc. Everything that he did pertaining to the life of this world, he was the best at. But yet, his main focus and concern was the akhirah, the hereafter. We clearly see that from his life, sallallahu, it was all about the da'wah to Allah. And this is also a matter of akhirah, it's a prime matter of akhirah, the da'wah to Allah. We look at the incident of At-Taif, for example. After all the doors were closed in his face in Mecca, he decided to walk to At-Taif. It's about 68 miles. When he got there and started calling people to Islam, what happened? They started mocking him, they insulted him, and they ordered their slaves and their servants to throw stones at him. They ran him out of their town, injured and bleeding. Now imagine if this happened to one of us. What would we do? I'll tell you what we would do. We would be thirsty for revenge and retribution. And we would not stop until we get it. It's human nature. But let us see what the teacher of mankind did in this situation. When he got to a place called Tarb al-Tha'ali, he felt a shade on top of him. He looked up, and there was Jibreel was in the cloud, along with the angel in charge of mountains. He said after greeting the Prophet ﷺ, Allah heard when your people responded to your call, and He has sent the angel of mountains to fulfill any orders that you give him. The angel greeted Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, if you want me to squeeze their whole town between the two mountains of Al-Akhshabain, I will. He ﷺ said, I would rather that from their loins would come some people that would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lofty attitude, lofty behavior. Wallahi ya ikhwa, the majority of us would say, the majority, illa rahimahullah, they would say, yes, squeeze and crush all of them. I would like to be there to see it too. But subhanAllah, this is because we let our egos and our needs run our lives and dictate our behaviors instead of giving that ability to the deen of Allah and the sunnah of the Prophet of Mercy, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because his life was all about the akhirah, the hereafter, planting as many seeds in this life and reaping their fruits in the real life, the life of the akhirah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the ones that follow the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in everything that we do in our lives. His footsteps are a sure way to success in this life and in the hereafter. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. أما بعد, brothers and sisters, the Salaf al-Salih, our illustrious predecessors, were also an example of people that wanted al-Jannah by being concerned about the hereafter, about the akhirah. Umar ibn Khattab said to his companions once, what are your wishes? A man said, I wish that this house is full of gold, that I would give it for the sake of Allah. Umar said, radiallahu anhu, tamannaw, tell me your wishes. They said, we don't know what to say, O Amir al-Mu'mineen. Umar said, radiallahu anhu, as for myself, my wish is for this house to be full of man the likes of Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. The wish of that man that spoke previously is lofty enough, having a whole house of gold and giving it for the sake of Allah. But subhanAllah, the wish of Umar is even loftier. Imagine having a full house or a masjid like this full of the likes of Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, the Sahabi al-Jaleel. When Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was ill, they brought him a doctor. The doctor said, he has a disease that has no cure. They asked him, what was it? What is it? He said, fear has taken over his heart, meaning the fear of Allah. He's sick from fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibn al-Mahdi said, in talking about Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, I used to notice Sufyan every night waking up scared, saying, An-nar, An-nar, the fire, the fire. The remembrance of the hellfire occupied, this is Sufyan talking, the remembrance of the hellfire occupied me from sleep and pleasures. Muhammad al-Warraq said that Imam al-Bukhari lost sleep over his concern for the knowledge of hadith. He said, I used to see him wake up 15 to 20 times every night. Then he prepares himself and sits and starts writing the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. But subhanallah, look at the results of what Imam al-Bukhari did. Al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, has been dead for a long time, but he's still receiving hasanat from his sahih that he left for the whole ummah to read. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا مات ابن آدم انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. On the authority of Abu Hurairah, Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, when the son of Adam dies, his good deeds stop, except for three things: an ongoing charity, or knowledge in the deen that people benefit from, or a righteous son that will make supplication for him. So many examples of how these great people in the beginning of our ummah worried about one thing, the matters of the hereafter. Now my question is, what about us? What about us? Where are we from all of this? And where do we really stand? And the answer is pretty obvious. We live in a time of trials and tribulations, a time where the majority of people have many concerns, and none of them have to do with the hereafter. Illa rahimahullah. People amassing wealth, concerned about their sustenance, their luxuries. But the thought of the hereafter very rarely crosses their minds because they are too busy. It would be unrealistic in this day and age to ask that we dedicate all our time to the akhirah, the hereafter. But we should at least strike the balance between the two. Like we find the time to build our lives in this world, we should definitely try to find the time to build the everlasting life in al-akhirah. We ask Allah to make us from the dwellers of Jannah. Some of the things that would help you strike that balance and strive for the akhirah. Some obvious things, but we all need reminders every now and then. The salah on time, and for the men, the salah on time in the masjid. The dua, supplication to Allah. The dhikr of Allah, remembering death. This is a big one. All of us, none of us do remember or even want to think about death. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us to do so, to remember death. And of course, attending classes of ilm, meaning the lectures in the masajid, qiyam fil layl, and every voluntary act of worship that you can perform. All of those things will get you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we get your heart leaning towards the matters of the akhirah. I'll leave you with this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Adil. He will not combine two states of fear with two states of safety for the son of Adam. Meaning, if you fear him in this life, You will come to him safe and secure on the day of judgment. And if you do not fear him in this life, you will come to him scared and full of regret on the day of judgment. SubhanAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us safety on the day that we meet him. We also ask him subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the ones that when they hear the speech, they follow the best of it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. اللهم اجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. اللهم آت أنفسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها. اللهم اغفر لنا خطأنا وعمدنا وجدنا وهزلنا وكل ذلك عندنا. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.
والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما